Okay, so let's say you and your partner are like racing to finish the dishes, or maybe you're arguing over who's better at trivia. You know, that little
Hmm.
spark of competition. It's actually way more common in relationships than we might think.
Right.
And today we're going to do a deep dive into how competition can impact your relationship. And it's not as simple as like competition is bad. Our source material today is this really fascinating podcast episode that digs into all the nuances.
Yeah. What I thought was so interesting is this episode really highlights how competitiveness can be kind of sneaky.
Yeah.
We often think of it as like sports or games, but it can show up in things like career goals,
Oh, totally.
personal growth,
Yeah.
even just like who takes out the trash.
It's like this hidden scoreboard that nobody talks about,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So how do we even begin to like untangle all of
Well,
this?
the episode starts by explaining that there are different types of competitiveness.
Okay.
It exists on a spectrum,
Mm.
like from playful banter that can actually bring you closer
Mm.
to like full-on rivalry that undermines the whole relationship.
That makes total sense. Because, like, for some couples, a little teasing is fun and brings them closer together. But for other couples, it can feel like a constant comparison game.
Yeah,
And this episode really digs into all of that.
it does. And
Mm.
one of the big insights is that a healthy dose of competition can actually be a good thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it can be a really positive force in the relationship
Interesting.
because it motivates both of you to step up your game.
Okay.
Whether it's like tackling a fitness goal together
Mm.
or even just like pushing each other to learn new skills.
So rather than dragging each other down, a little friendly competition can actually help you both level up, both individually and as a couple.
Exactly.
I like that idea.
But the source material is also really honest about the downsides
Right.
because when the competition gets too intense
Yeah.
or starts feeling personal,
Yeah.
that's when it can really damage the relationship.
It's like that feeling of constantly being judged or measured against your partner, which not really the best recipe for feeling loved and supported, is it?
Definitely not. And the episode uses this really vivid analogy. It compares it to like a team sport.
Okay.
You know, when you're competing against your teammate, you lose that sense of unity, that feeling of being on the same side.
Yeah.
It suddenly becomes less about us and more about who comes out on top.
And that's where things get really messy. Because if you're always focused on like winning against your partner, you miss out on those moments of genuine connection and support, which are so important for a healthy relationship.
Absolutely.
So it sounds like a little friendly rivalry can be fun and even beneficial, but it's all about striking that delicate balance.
It is.
So how do we make sure the competition stays healthy and doesn't become destructive?
That's the big question. And that's what we're going to explore next.
Perfect.
The source material actually offers some really practical advice for finding that sweet spot.
Awesome.
So we'll dig into that more in a bit.
Sounds good. All right, so we've talked about how a little competition can be fun, but too much can get kind of toxic. So how do we find that sweet spot? Like in our relationships, where do we draw the line?
Well, luckily, the source material today actually gives us some pretty concrete strategies.
Oh, good.
One of the biggest takeaways for me was setting boundaries.
Okay.
Like, it's almost like drawing a line in the sand and saying, okay, you know, we can joke about who's a better cook,
Mm-hmm.
but we're not going to like compare salaries or put each other down.
Right. It's about being intentional about what's playful and what actually crosses the line.
Exactly, because what one couple finds funny, another couple might find really hurtful.
Yeah, totally. So it really is about having those open and honest conversations.
Yeah.
About what feels good and what doesn't.
Yeah. And you know what? The episode even suggested that couples should check in with each other like regularly,
Oh, interesting.
like maybe once a month or something. Just say, hey, is this still feeling fun for you? Are we on the same page?
Because sometimes, those lines can shift over time, right?
Yeah.
So it's almost like relationship maintenance in a way.
Yeah.
Just making sure that, the foundation is strong. But beyond those boundaries, is there anything else we can do to make sure things stay healthy?
Well, the source material also talked about shifting your mindset.
Okay.
Like instead of thinking about competition,
Mm.
you think about collaboration.
Okay.
It's remembering that you're on the same team,
Interesting.
working towards a shared goal,
Mm.
not trying to outdo each other at every turn.
That makes a lot of sense because if you're always trying to like one up your partner, you kind of miss out on the chance to celebrate their success and be genuinely happy for them.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, the episode gives a really good example of this.
I'd love to hear it.
There's this couple that used to constantly compete over chores.
Oh, no.
They would like race to finish the dishes,
Oh, God.
bicker over who folded the laundry better. It
Oh.
was just creating this like tension in their relationship.
Ugh. I can see how that would get old fast. So how did
Mm.
they turn things around?
They finally realized that they needed to stop keeping score
Okay.
and start working together.
Interesting.
So they actually like sat down
Mm-hmm.
and divided the chores based on their strengths and preferences.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah, so like she loved organizing, so she took care of that.
Okay.
He was really good at the outdoor stuff.
Makes sense.
By playing to their individual strengths, they were able to create a system that felt really fair,
Right.
supportive, and all that competition just faded away.
It's like they finally realized they were stronger together than they were apart.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
And speaking of teamwork, the source material also talks about choosing activities where you can actually collaborate.
Oh.
It suggests brainstorming things you both enjoy
Mm-hmm.
and can work on together.
So instead of always playing games that you're already good at, maybe try something new together where you're both on equal footing and you
Yeah.
can learn from each other.
Yeah, like cooking classes,
Oh, fun.
building something together,
Okay.
learning a new language.
That's a good idea.
It's about finding those shared experiences that really build connection
Right.
instead of rivalry.
So it's about like focusing on the fun of doing something together rather than who's doing it better.
Right.
But, at the end of the day, how do we know if we're actually striking that balance?
That's a good question.
Like, what are the signs of a healthy competitive dynamic?
Well, the episode highlighted one key thing:
What's that?
playfulness.
Okay.
If you can tease each other,
Yeah.
push each other, even like compete in a way that feels lighthearted and fun, then it's probably working.
It's that feeling of being able to laugh at yourselves, knowing that it's not really about winning or losing. It's about enjoying the moment together.
Exactly. It's about finding that sweet spot where competition becomes a source of joy and connection
Mm-hmm.
rather than like tension and resentment.
Mm-hmm.
And the episode actually suggests one final, really powerful way to cultivate that positive dynamic.
Okay, so we've talked about boundaries and shifting our mindset to be more collaborative and choosing activities where we can work together as a couple. What was that final piece of advice that you mentioned from the episode?
Yeah, so the episode suggests that couples should actively celebrate each other's wins,
Okay.
both big and small.
Oh, interesting.
So instead of feeling threatened when your partner succeeds,
Yeah.
try genuinely sharing in their excitement and acknowledging their achievements.
So it's like flipping the script. Instead of viewing your partner's accomplishments as something to compete with, you see it as something that like enriches the relationship.
Exactly. And the episode even argues that this can actually create like a positive feedback loop.
Oh, wow. How so?
Because when your partner feels genuinely celebrated, they're more likely to like reciprocate that support for you.
That makes sense.
And that leads to a more, harmonious and fulfilling dynamic for both of you.
So it's not just about avoiding negativity. It's about actively creating a culture of encouragement and appreciation
Yeah.
within the relationship.
Exactly.
And when you both feel seen and supported in pursuing your own goals, then that sense of healthy competition becomes a source of inspiration and motivation. It's that feeling of knowing you have someone in your corner, cheering you on no matter what.
Exactly.
That's really powerful.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into competition and relationships, I think the key takeaway is that it's not about eliminating competition altogether.
Right.
It's about approaching it with intention and awareness.
So those sparks of rivalry, they're going to happen, but we get to choose how we respond to them. We can either let them divide us, or we can use them to grow individually and as a couple.
And I think this episode gives us some really great tools for making that choice.
Totally.
By setting those boundaries, shifting our mindset from competition to collaboration, choosing activities where we can work as a team,
Yeah,
and celebrating each other's wins.
I love it.
We can turn those potentially destructive sparks into something really positive.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, a relationship is a partnership, not some game to be won or lost.
Exactly.
So as you think about this episode, ask yourself,
What areas of my relationship could benefit from a little healthy competition? And how can I make sure it stays fun and connected and leads to mutual growth?
that's such a good question. And I think when we approach competition with intention and a commitment to each other's happiness, even those little sparks of rivalry can actually make our relationship stronger and more vibrant.
I agree.